Hello and welcome to the debate. I'm Marzi Hashmi. Thanks so much for being with us. Well, the leader of the Islamic Revolution, Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei, says the enemies of Islam is trying to divide the Muslims. For many people, the countries that may come to mind would be certain Western countries, which have interfered in Islamic countries for years. But it may be a surprise that, according to allegations, some of the biggest enemies to Muslims are regimes of Islamic countries themselves. Stay tuned as we take a closer look at those who call themselves the keepers of the Kaaba but are accused of being otherwise.
The leader of Iran's Islamic Revolution addressed a group of Muslim scholars on unity among Muslims on the occasion of Unity Week, which coincides with the birth anniversary of Prophet Muhammad. Ayatollah Khamenei urged all Muslims to stand up against efforts targeting their unity.
با هر عامل مخالف وحدت و ضد وحدت مقابله بکنن. این یک تکلیف بزرگی است برای همه ما. هم شیعه باید این رو قبول کند، هم سنی باید قبول کند، هم شعبه های گوناگونی که در میان شیعیان، در میان سنی ها وجود دارد اینو باید بپذیرند.
The leader warned that Islam's enemies are trying to achieve their goals through takfiri groups.
این جریان‌های تکفیری که در دنیای اسلام به وجود آمدند، اینها وجودشان یک مژده است برای استکبار برای دشمنان جهان اسلام. اینا هستند که به جای توجه به واقعیت خبیث رژیم صهیونیستی توجه ها رو به جای دیگری معطوف می‌کنند. درست نقطه مقابل اونچه که اسلام خواسته است.
In a message on the occasion of Prophet Muhammad's birth anniversary, President Hassan Rouhani also voiced regret over divisions among Muslims' ranks. Rouhani called for efforts to identify the root causes of the divisions. Muslims around the world feel a greater need for unity now that takfiris have promoted deadly violence in some Muslim countries, including Iraq and Syria, by taking advantage of divisions among followers of Islamic denominations. Iran's Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif says Tehran has compelling evidence implicating supporters of the takfiri groups that have destabilized the Middle East. Zarif posted the comment on his Facebook page in reaction to the assassination of Iranian diplomat Abul Qasim Asadi in the Yemeni capital Sana'a. Some Muslim scholars blame the division among Muslims on what they call an axis of evil involving the US, Israel and Saudi Arabia.
Saudi Arabia has been influenced by the US and European political game. The Saudis and other Arab countries have turned their land into Western bases. They do this not to support Islam, but to gain power. This makes us sorry. The Saudi government has also been used to support Israeli and Western interests.
Saudi Arabia's role has become noticeable thanks to the notorious head of its intelligence apparatus, Bandar bin Sultan. Bandar is said to be directing takfiri groups in Syria and Iraq. He has closest links to the US intelligence service and allegedly held talks with the Israeli Prime Minister to discuss ways of furthering their joint agenda to achieve their goals at the expense of regional nations.
I'd like to welcome my guest to the program right here in the studio, Tehran. Newsroom Director, Press Newsroom Director Hamid Reza Imadi. And out of New York, UN correspondent for Newsmax magazine, Mr. Stuart Stugel. Thank you both for being with us. Well, let me start this off in New York with Mr. Stugel. Fingers are being pointed, a lot of fingers in the Islamic world actually being pointed towards Saudi Arabia for causing a lot of the violence that is existing, a lot of the chaos that is taking place in many countries. And we remember that we had reports even from last year that Prince Bandar even tried to bribe the Russians as far as to change their position in Syria. First of all, your take on all this. Do you agree that Saudi Arabia is behind a lot of this violence? Well, let's start off with that, and then I'll continue.
Well, I wouldn't disagree that the Saudis are playing a central role in what is now developing in the Middle East. I think the bottom line to it is the Saudis see Iran as their major threat, and under Prince Bandar, they're drawing a line. They're going to use all their military power and financial power to try and box in the Iranians. And I think they believe that the new Iranian president really does not have the guts to stand up to a fight with Saudi Arabia. So Prince Bandar now is drawing, so we say, a line in the sand.
So what do you think, staying with you, Mr. Stugel, the goal then, you said basically Saudi Arabia is looking at Iran, and is it just, are you, according to what you're saying, counter Iran, or what is the goal in being behind so much of the strife that's going on in the Middle East today?
Well, the Saudis want to control what's going on, and they see the Iranians as the biggest threat to Saudi control of the region. And the Saudis are now backed by the Israelis, and the White House is standing by and virtually doing nothing. So when you have an access of the United States virtually as a how shall we say it, as a silent participant, and then you've got the Israelis and the Saudis in lockstep, you've got a very powerful combination, and the Iranians, they're going to try and box in the Iranians.